Wesley Chapel, Florida on your radar for a new home? And if it is, then there are certain things you must know before you move here. And I'm going to break those down for you today. These are the top tips and the top things to consider before you move here so you know all of the information and you can decide if it's the right move for you. And at the end, I'm going to break down a really important tip for you that you might not consider that might just change your mind about moving to Wesley Chapel. So be sure to settle in. Let's dive into the video. Now guys, there are so many things you need to know about moving to Wesley Chapel before you move here. And a lot of these tips or information I'm going to give you can save you from making a really expensive mistake. Now, I'm not saying moving to Wesley Chapel is a mistake. I love it there. I visit there quite a lot on the weekends. There's a ton to do. But some things people love, other people hate. And so it's important to have all of the information so that you can decide where you lay on that scale and what's important to you and the things that maybe are not so great about Wesley Chapel, if you can handle those or not. So like I said, be sure to watch all the way to the end because I'm going to give you my big tip about moving to Wesley Chapel. Okay, let's dig right in. So if you're thinking about moving to Wesley Chapel, then the chances are you already have a pretty good idea as to what it's like, but I'm going to break down just like the 30,000 foot overview. So Wesley Chapel's a rapidly emerging suburb of Tampa. Over the last 5 or 10 years in particular, it's seen massive growth. And it's situated about 25 minutes north of Tampa, up 275, which turns into I-75, and comes off of 3 main exits at that point. And like I said, it's really become one of the focal points for people over the last 5 years especially who want to be close to Tampa and enjoy all of the trappings and all of the culture and the awesome things that are in Tampa, but don't want to pay Tampa home prices or deal with Tampa traffic. So that gives you an idea as to where Wesley Chapel lays on a map. And let's take a dive into the culture first of all, because this is one of the most appealing things to a lot of people that move to that area. And the culture and vibe in Wesley Chapel can best be described as kind of part laid back, but part vibrant as well. So we're seeing a lot of people moving out of Tampa to Wesley Chapel because there's certainly enough there to satisfy a lot of people, but you don't have that hustle and bustle of Tampa, the traffic, or the Tampa home prices. And there's certainly a ton of stuff that you can do in Wesley Chapel. It's why we end up going there a lot of weekends. So there's plenty of opportunities to relax. They have a couple of lagoon communities there where you can buy the day passes or you can even choose to live in one of them, but that's really a great experience. I highly recommend people check that out. There's things like Tiger Woods Pop Stroke, which is awesome. It's like a really cool putt-putt course. There's all the stores that you could possibly ask for. There's a ton of restaurants. And so there's really a lot to keep you occupied in Wesley Chapel. Now, the majority of the population is younger than a lot of the other Tampa suburbs, like I mentioned, particularly the ones that I've lived in previously. So the median age in Wesley Chapel at the last reading was 37. Now compare that to up in the 50s where I live in Brooksville, and you can immediately start to see the differences. But 37 is actually below the Florida average. It's actually below the national average as well. So definitely a younger demographic. And what we've seen is an emerging trend of the people that we work with who are growing up in Tampa, maybe having good jobs there. And then when it comes time to have kids, they're moving out to the suburbs. And Wesley Chapel, because of its proximity and a lot of the things that are going on there, is very high up their list. On top of that, it has great schools as well. So it really checks off a lot of the boxes for what a ton of people are looking for. Now the nightlife here can be described as, I would guess, moderate. It's certainly not on a par with Tampa, which has a very vibrant nightlife scene, but it's certainly ahead of somewhere like Spring Hill or Brooksville, where I've lived previously, and some of the other suburbs around Tampa, probably comparable to a West Chase or something like that. They do have a rooftop bar there now, which is really cool. And of course, as they build Wesley Chapel out more, and it is undergoing rapid growth at the moment, the nightlife options become more and more plentiful as well. So it's very much an emerging and growing scene there, but for most people, the nightlife is going to be more than sufficient to keep them happy. And of course, you can hop on I-75 and get down to Tampa pretty easily as well, so you can enjoy the nightlife there if you want to. There's also some cool breweries there as well, but if it's really clubs that you're into, that scene's going to be a little bit further south in Tampa, like I mentioned. That might not be necessarily in Wesley Chapel, but there's certainly a number of bars that stay open late enough as well in Wesley Chapel. So like I said, for most people, that's going to be more than sufficient for you. Now, some of the most popular activities in Wesley Chapel are going to be obviously the shopping. There's 2 really great malls there. Restaurant scene is very vibrant. There's Tiger Woods Pop Stroke, like I already mentioned. There's a main event amusement arcade with bowling and pool, so that's great if you have kids. It's also close to a number of state parks as well. You have the ice skating rink, so plenty of stuff to keep you occupied in Wesley Chapel. Now, the only thing I do want to mention is it is a little bit further away from the water, so if beaches are your thing, it is going to be a longer drive than some of the other suburbs in Tampa, but otherwise there's going to be lots on your doorstep to keep you occupied. Hi guys, Ross Hardy from the Hardy team at Remax. Hopefully you're getting value from this video. I'd love you to do a couple of things if you can. First of all, please like the video and comment down below. Let me know what you think of Wesley Chapel and what you love to do there if you're from Wesley Chapel. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell. That way you will get updated with all of the latest and greatest videos we make about Wesley Chapel and the other great suburbs in Tampa. And as you may know, I'm a real estate expert in the area, so if you're thinking of moving to Wesley Chapel or you have a property to sell there, reach out to my team and myself. We are local experts on the ground. You can hit us up at the contact information below. You can call, text, you can email us or set up a Zoom conversation. It really doesn't matter to us. We're here to answer any questions that you have. There's never a bad time to start doing your research, and there's no pressure from us. Anyway, for now, let's dive right back into the video. Okay, so next up, let's consider the population density of Wesley Chapel. And it's important to know if you're considering Wesley Chapel that it is an area that's undergoing pretty rapid growth at this point. It's been one of the fastest growing areas of Tampa Bay over the last 5 years, if not Florida for that matter. You know, what started as very much a rural vibe like 10 years ago has seen a rapid transition into something a little bit more vibrant, but it still maintains a little bit of both. But it is important to know that there's a lot of construction going on in Wesley Chapel, a lot of great communities being built, but as such, that is going to increase the population and the population density. So there are about 70,000 people in Wesley Chapel currently, and like I said, that is growing. And if you think to yourself, man, that sounds like traffic might be an issue, you certainly would be right. I've been on I-75 going south to the restaurants in Tampa quite often at 5:30, and the traffic coming back out of Tampa, coming off at the 56 or the 54 exit, has been backed up for like a mile. So Wesley Chapel is known, just like Tampa kind of, for its traffic. It is one of the more densely traffic affected areas in the Tampa Bay area as far as the suburbs go, so definitely be aware of that. You know, traffic's definitely going to be worse than somewhere like Land O'Lakes, Lutz, Spring Hill, Brooksville, but it's not going to be as bad as Tampa. So if you're coming from a big city, it's not likely to be an issue for you. If you're coming from a small town, it's going to be probably a little worse than what you're used to. Now, it's worth noting that the public transport is very, very basic, so if you're going to be relying on that, then Wesley Chapel might be a little bit difficult for you to navigate. Again, it's better than some of the other suburbs, but it's certainly not anything near on a par with Tampa or any other big city that you might be used to. And it doesn't really do much to help ease the traffic, of course, either. So public transport, better than some, not great, certainly shouldn't be relied on. Now, let's say you're on board with the location, the culture, the vibe, the population. Another thing you might want to consider is the weather or the climate. Now, as you probably know, Florida is subtropical, it's very humid, and we're known primarily for two things. That is hurricanes, and that is really, really bad humidity in the summer, and both of those things are no doubt true. So Wesley Chapel is going to be a high of 90, 91, low of 72 in July and August. You're going to be averaging around 21, 22 days a month of rain during those times because that humidity builds up through the day, and then in the early mid-afternoon, the heavens open and the rain starts coming down. We're used to that in Florida. It's not a big deal. And the humidity does get up to 100% in those summer months as well. So buckle up and be ready for a really hot and humid time. And you know, I've been here for 20 years now. I came from England where there's really not much humidity at all, and it was definitely a shock to the system, and one that I still feel and experience every summer, even 20 years on. But you pick your poison, right? So would I rather deal with a couple of humid months in the summer where you can still go to the beach and get in the water and do stuff, or would I rather deal with 3 or 4 months of snow up north? I mean, give me the sun every single time. And then, like I said, touching on the hurricanes, I don't think there's a single Floridian who doesn't get put on slightly heightened alert when hurricane season comes around. And particularly in light of what we just went through at the end of 2024 with Helene and Milton, where it was really the worst that I've seen in the 20 years I've been here. And the problem is this, is that when you've been here for 20 years like I have, and you have some close calls where we've boarded up the house, or we've made contingency plans, or we've even got out of town altogether, and you come back and nothing's happened, you start to feel like you're invincible. possible. And you hear all these stories about how Tampa Bay has not had a direct hit in 100 years, and you think, well, it's never going to happen. And at the end of last year, it shows us very much that it can and will happen. And we didn't even take a direct hit at that point. So what happened, if you haven't seen it on the news, is that pretty much all of the coastal areas from Sarasota up north through Hernando and parts of Citrus County suffered really catastrophic flooding. And it was back to back as well, which made it even worse. And even the inland areas like Wesley Chapel did experience flooding as well, because it was a torrential amount of rain, and then in certain areas the riverbanks burst, and so they were flooded as well. So it's just a stark reminder that hurricanes are real and we should really be on alert for them no matter how many near misses we have. The big one is only just around the corner. But what I do want to talk about climate-wise is something that's maybe a little bit more overlooked, although not by the snowbirds, they've worked it out already, and that is that we have the most beautiful mild winters here. So I'm filming this at the end of March 2025. We've just had a gorgeous January and February, and even driving into the office this morning to make this video, the weather was really cool outside. It was like a crisp 63, and it won't last much longer, but those months are my favorite months. I do think it's a little bit funny when I see Floridians walking around with hats and gloves and scarves on when it's like 51 degrees outside. I don't think that's that cold, but without a doubt, we have such beautiful weather during those months. It really makes those summer months more tolerable. So you're going to be looking at highs of 70, lows of 48 in January, for example, and we might have a couple of cold snaps and some frosts, but it's really only 2 or 3 days of the year. So really beautiful winters. I cannot tell you enough how good they are and how great it is to be walking around in short sleeves while the rest of the country is shoveling snow. Now, another important consideration about Wesley Chapel, if you're on board still at the moment, is the real estate and the types of homes that you can buy there. And luckily I've got you covered on that. Like I said, I've been a real estate expert in the area for 20 years, but the great thing about Wesley Chapel is that there's a whole host of homes there. So you can buy homes there from, say around 300, 320, gets you a pretty good home there still. There's awesome brand new construction, and there's plenty of it, really starting around the high 3s, low 4s. So if you had 420,000, for example, to buy, then there's going to be a ton of new construction options that open up to you. You've got the lagoon communities, you've got golf course communities. There's an awesome community I visited the other day that's all acre plus home sites, which is tucked away back behind Crate, which I just fell in love with. Every single home is so different there. So all sorts of types of homes, although of course no like Gulf front homes because we're so far inland from the water. That's really the only exclusion that we have. But if you're interested in finding out more about the real estate, like I said, be sure to reach out to us and we can send you a list of homes in your price point. Now, the one thing I will say about the homes in Wesley Chapel that you should know for sure is that a lot of the homes there are in HOAs, homeowners association communities. So there are fees associated with that, and there are deed restrictions as far as certain rules and regulations that you have to follow. Now, for some people, that's not a big deal. They don't mind sticking by those, and they love the amenities that the HOA brings, like community pools, tennis courts, fitness centers, and some of those things. For other people, they really don't like that. So that's just one thing to note. If you're not into HOAs, you are going to be a little bit limited on your options. So Tampa, for example, doesn't have many HOA communities or deed restricted areas downtown or close to there, but certainly Wesley Chapel has a lot of them. And some of these communities also have CDD fees, which is community development district, if you want to look that up. So it's an additional fee yet again. So just be aware of that in Wesley Chapel, that most properties are going to be inside of an HOA. There are properties outside of there, but the options are a little bit more limited. Now, with all of this being said, I pulled some great information this morning. So I want to let you know that according to Zillow, the average price of a home in Wesley Chapel is $418,000, 418. And that's down about 2.4% over last year. So Wesley Chapel is experiencing a little bit of a home price decline at the moment, much like many areas of Tampa Bay. Now, this is slightly higher than the national average, so just be aware of that. But I do think you get a lot of value for money in Wesley Chapel, particularly with new construction, where they're running all sorts of great incentives at the moment. So just keep in mind, 418 is the average price point according to Zillow. Now, of course, in addition to just home pricing, it's really important to consider the overall cost of living, especially with the inflation that we've seen over recent years. So let me dive into that a little bit as well. Now, Wesley Chapel is actually right in line line with national averages for cost of living. So it's neither above nor below the average cost of living in the US, according to PayScale, which is the website that I use to do all of my research. Now, property taxes are probably pretty moderate, depending on where you're coming from. The only exclusion being that if there's a CDD fee, they may be a little bit higher than you're used to. And probably the homeowner's insurance costs are going to be a little bit higher than what you're used to as well, particularly in light of the hurricanes that we keep having. However, it's also worth noting that we have no state income tax here in Florida, so that's a really huge benefit. And DeSantis keeps talking about trying to scrap the property taxes, although there will likely be some sort of substitute tax in its place. So all of those things worth considering when you're taking into account the general cost of living here. Now, one of the other things you'll want to know about Wesley Chapel if you're considering making a move is the job market. And I can kind of sum it up by saying that it's better than most of the other suburbs around. However, it's not as good as Tampa. So you might want to consider trying to find a job before you get here rather than once you do get here. But I want to kind of break down the pay scale. And so I want to look at a couple of specific jobs, let you know what they are paying in Wesley Chapel so you can compare that to where you're at and decide whether it's a good move for you or not. So I went on to ZipRecruiter to pull this information. Again, a great website to take a look at, both for comparable salaries and also trying to find out if there's jobs in this market. Another great one is Indeed, so check that out. But if you are a RN in Wesley Chapel, then your salary is going to be about $80,000. So again, compare that to your area. If you're a teacher, which is one of the most amazing professions and most underpaid, unfortunately, you're going to be looking at about $48,000. And all said and done, the average salary in Wesley Chapel is around $43,000. So again, go onto ZipRecruiter, look at what your job pays in this area and compare it to other suburbs, compare it to where you're at now, and you can make a good decision for yourself. Now, of course, if you have kids, another consideration is going to be the schools. And this is one of the areas where Wesley Chapel absolutely excels. Over the last 5 or so years, we've seen a number of great schools pop up that are being built in specific communities, but the schools that were already existing just go from strength to strength as well. Overall, the schools in Wesley Chapel are well above average. In fact, when you look at all of the suburbs that are north of Tampa, it's probably one of, if not the best for school grades in all of those suburbs. And again, it's just another reason why it's so popular with people at the moment, because the schools are absolutely fantastic, whether you go public or private, they're just awesome across the board. So John Long Middle School, Wagaras Ranch High are two of the standouts, but there's a ton of them. And you can go online and do research on niche or on great schools to compare grades to state averages and national averages. But suffice to say, I do not think you're going to be disappointed with the schools in Wesley Chapel. And if you're into homeschooling, there is a homeschooling culture there. It's not as robust as maybe Spring Hill or Brooksville, but there is some there, and they do have some meetups and stuff. So you're not going to be left out on an island if you're into homeschooling as well. Now, like I said, location-wise, Wesley Chapel is fantastic, and there's also great things to be able to do. So access south to Tampa is a breeze. If you want to go north to Ocala or further north, you are right on I-75 there, so that's fantastic as well. Now, like I said, you've got pop stroke, you've got the axe throwing, dueling pianos, the ice rink, there's main event, there's live music, breweries, golf courses, tennis courts, community parks, pretty much anything you could hope for. And then it's right on the door to a bunch of state parks as well. So great location, great amenities, makes it a real, match made in heaven for a lot of people. If you're a foodie, I'm definitely going to recommend you check out Crate, which is a really cool concept. It's a bunch of old shipping containers that have been turned into mostly restaurants. There's some stores there as well. And they're all little small independent places. So there's burger places, chicken places, sushi, charcuterie. There's a little champagne bar, Jamaican, Mexican, Greek. I love flipping fries, which is there. So really, really good food scene in Wesley Chapel as well. And that's kind of constantly evolving and getting better. And now for the grand reveal. Like I said to you, thanks for sticking around to the end. My big tip for Wesley Chapel if you're moving there is this. There's a ton of new construction going on in Wesley Chapel. And as such, the builders are all competing against each other. And so the incentives that the builders are offering in Wesley Chapel in particular are absolutely fantastic. For example, the interest rate today, average 30-year rate in the US is about 6.8 when I woke up this morning. But one of the builders I visited last week is, for example, is buying down the interest rate to 4.875 for a conventional or 4.5 for a FHA VA. And on top of that, they're also giving $15,000 or $20,000 towards closing costs, depending on what the price is of the home. So there's some great incentives to be had, and the interest rate buy downs can save you hundreds of dollars per month on your mortgage and tens of thousands of dollars on interest over the course of the loan. So definitely be sure to look into new construction. Be sure to reach out to us us. We are new home experts in that area, and we would love to give you more information about that. But it's a fantastic way to make your dollar stretch a little bit further when making that move. Okay guys, so those are the things you have to know about Wesley Chapel before you move here. I hope you found that useful, and I hope you got some good information that you maybe didn't know before to help you make the right decision for you and decide if it's a place that you do want to move to. If you like what you hear and Wesley Chapel's for you, then please be sure to get in touch with me and the team at the contact information below, and we would love to take you around, give you more information, show you around some of the communities, and try and work out what's going to be the best place for you to make the move to. And don't forget, you can snag our list of preferred properties in Wesley Chapel by leaving a comment down below. I respond to all of the comments personally. There's no AI bots or assistants doing it for me, so you'll be speaking to me, and I would love to help you out. And then finally, if you want to know a little bit more about Wesley Chapel, I've got a ton of videos that I'll link down in the description, such as video tours, map tours, best places to live, and tons of video on new construction. So be sure to watch those videos as well. One of them is going to pop up in the top corner here. Until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm Ross Hardy from the Hardy team. It's time to love where you live.